Redditors who saved all of their money at a young age instead of living, and now are 50 plus years old. How are your lives today? Do you regret your life choices when it comes to the money aspect? We scrimped for decades. Our house is paid off. We have one car payment for 3 more months. We have no credit card debt. Our retirement savings are ahead of schedule. Next week, we head to Iceland for my 52nd birthday. Totally worth it. Nobody wants to be 75, sick, and too poor to quit working, no matter how much fun you had as a 20-something. Losing my job as a fairly well-paid engineering manager in the defense industry and having to sell my house during the housing crash in the early 90s ended up, in retrospect, being a defining moment in my current financial well-being. It took roughly 6 years to get back to anywhere near my former career trajectory after landing a good position in the cellular industry. Once burned, twice shy. My wife, a registered nurse, and I bought a home that was about half the price the banks said we qualified for. Our reasoning being, if one of us lost our jobs, most likely me again, because nurses, we wouldn't have to lose our home again. Fortunately, that never happened. We both were able to advance in our careers and were able to pay off our mortgage in 7 years, fully fund our son's college education, max out our IRA contributions and have literally no debt. My wife just paid cash for a Subaru Forester, not the fanciest of cars or a status symbol by any means, but she loves it. Today is literally my last day at work before I voluntarily retire early at the age of 58. It's wise to save and invest all along the way, not only for eventual retirement, but also for unexpected life events that can happen at any time. Most people who plan for their financial futures also allow themselves enough fun money for today. It's rarely all or nothing, but a combination of save and spend, with no regrets when looking back. Exactly this. I budget and don't waste the money on little things so I can live the big things. $200 a paycheck gets you a dope vacation at the end of the year. Would I rather spend that money on lunch every day or on an all-inclusive for 2 weeks on the beach? I'll remember the beach at least. Well, I lived while saving money, and at 53 my kids are out of college with no debt and I am semi-retired so I can spend lots of time with them and my grandkids, secure in the knowledge that I will be able to live comfortably for the rest of my life without being a burden to others. We lived far below our means for nearly 30 years, saving all the money could, bought a nice piece of property in the woods and started building a house, paid for construction out of our savings, took years to build, ended up with our dream house with no debt at all. Early 50s, I work at my profession part-time and my wife gardens, almost retired. Totally worth it. While we were in savings mode, it didn't seem like we were sacrificing. Still had a great time with life. Just drove cheap cars and lived in a small house. Took vacations to visit friends instead of going to resorts. Living within our means meant we had no money worries after we got out of our 20s. I feel like this post has it completely backwards, as evidenced by many comments in this thread. The idea that saving comes at the expense of living is totally wrong. And it's the people who weren't thinking about the future who likely regret their life choices. Those who saved and invested have financial freedom relatively early in life. This describes my parents. Dad is retired at 56, mom at 48. They just travel the world now. Pretty jealous actually, lol. By saved, I assume you mean invested. I invested in real estate. At 52, I get enough rental income that I will retire as soon as my kid is through college when I am about 56. I travel and will travel even more. I didn't live while at college. While all of my friends went to university and are in mountains of debt, I went to a junior college, got all of my basic classes out of the way, and then went part-time to university, which was cheaper and I could afford it while working a part-time job. It was a local university so I had to live with mom and dad until I was 26, which sucked and I missed out on a lot of independence that comes with going away to school. But it was worth it. I graduated in 6 years with my BA, instead of 4, but with no debt. Without a monthly student loan I was able to pay off my car quickly, and can afford a lot of other things. Phones, computers, vacations, tools, Legos, etc. without worrying about where the money will come from. My wife and I live comfortably. She did the same thing. and we currently have a house, a 3-year-old, and newer cars. I survived cancer surgery. All of those have been paid off except for the house, which will be paid off 10 years before it is due. We currently have $30,000 in checking and $42,000 in savings, in large part because we sacrificed when we were younger. Point of reference: 55 years old, did most everything the way you're supposed to, school, real jobs, lived conservatively, married, lowish tolerance for risk, yada, yada. It depends on one's definition of living, but for the most part, most of my regrets are about not having lived or taken chances, or however you want to say it. It became apparent to me when I was an editor of a windsurfing magazine, and around a lot of the sailors we covered, I was the one with a steady job and paycheck, a wife, I owned a home, drove a decent car. These guys were drifters, irresponsible, couch surfing, earning poverty wages, teaching windsurfing at various vacation destinations when they weren't competing. Most traveled around with pretty much everything they owned, their gear and clothes, and lived with their parents some of the time and friends and folks they met on the road at other times. Rarely did these guys have health insurance or more than a couple $100 to their name at any one time. Yet these losers on the fast track to nowhere spoke multiple languages, traveled the world, and experienced things that I never did or will. Plus, if I compared notes with any of them now, 15 plus years later, our lives probably wouldn't be all that different. It's not like I'm some multimillionaire or saving lives or changing the world. I'm just a regular schmuck with a regular job like most of them likely are. But when we reflect, they've got a crap ton more cool stuff to remember than I do, much of which probably shaped them to be as cool now as I thought they were back then. Old, over 70, retired guy here. My parents were never extravagant people and always kept me on a monetarily short leash. That means they were able to send me to a fairly expensive college without borrowing. I met my wife in grad school where both of us were earning graduate school salaries. Not much at all. We married as graduate students. We have been married a long time. No divorce settlements. And have both always worked at jobs that have paid reasonably well. But we do not eat at fancy restaurants, nor do we drive fancy cars. We do not have expensive clothing or jewelry. Our entertainment is movies and books, although we did have season tickets to Steppenwolf when we lived in Chicago. When we were young, our vacations were camping and visiting relatives. In the past few years we have gone on some modest European vacations for which we paid cash. We have never owned a timeshare or a second house or a boat. When our parents passed on, they left us reasonable sums that we put away in case of an emergency. That is because they were frugal, too. Neither of us smoke, drink, or gamble, and a rough calculation says that has been worth savings of over $50,000 during the course of our marriage. Let me emphasize this just a bit more because it also means we were not exposed to causes of cancer and car crashes and bankruptcy, and we are not members of some right-wing religious group. I admit to being an atheist and I do not claim moral superiority. It is just that neither of us like tobacco or booze and we think gambling is boring. We have always tried to save as much as possible. Has it been worth it? Heck, yes. Our daughter graduated from college and graduate school with no student loans. We live near her now, and if she has an emergency, we do not expect this to happen. We can help. Our pensions, Social Security and Medicare keep us going on a day-to-day basis, but it is extremely comforting to know that we can tap into savings for help in bad times. Peace of mind is a wonderful concept. My parents were always frugal, scrimped and saved their entire life, invested any extra money for decades. Then a year before retirement, early onset Alzheimer's destroyed my dad in less than 5 years. No retirement to enjoy, no fun spending the money they saved for years. After all of the money spent on treatment and care, my mother now lives comfortably because of a good severance health insurance policy my father negotiated from a decade prior. So a different moral was learned. Plan for the future, but still enjoy life and money to the fullest while you can. Otherwise you may end up with nothing more than a gold-plated coffin. Sounds like your dad's planning left your mom comfortable. If they had lived differently, her life may well have been ruined as well. I think taking care of your spouse is a noble attainment, and probably one your dad would be happy about. I will be 50 in 6 months. By then I will own my house outright. I have enough saved to retire now. I will keep working to pay for my 2 kids' college, through PhD if they want, because I like my job and it pays well. I'm still fit and healthy. Getting here was a balancing act of spending enough to have a blast while saving enough to retire comfortably. Yes, I have had a good income, but that was due to the effort of my wife and I. I put myself through school. I would have liked to get a master's, but I wouldn't make much more money and it would be time from my family. I drive an 11-year-old vehicle. I ponder major purchases, and I recognize that things won't make me as happy as it feels like they will when you buy them. Basically, I plan like I'm going to live for decades and I'll live like I might die this year. Time is the only thing of true value. If I give you my time, it is because I love you, or you are paying me for it. I just work to keep the balance. My dad is Shinto Buddhist, and my parents always lived far below their means, so money has never been an issue. But they also never splurge or buy luxury. The first time I realized how reasonable, effective, smart their lifestyle is was when they paid for me to go on a trip to Europe for a week with a few teachers' classmates. They thought it would be a great educational opportunity for me. One girl I knew lived in a 2-story mansion. Parents both drove a Lexus, and she said she couldn't go because her parents couldn't afford it. I'll be 50 in February. I was a workaholic in my 20s and 30s, and tried to save money in that I didn't travel, take vacations, buy new cars or clothes, etc. I missed out on 2 women who could have been great wives, mothers, and instead married an insane person at 34. It took me a decade, and her adultery, for me to realize I could never change how her brain worked. She had 3 diagnosed conditions, and I finally got out. Now I'm too old to remarry or have children, and due to bad luck and 2 recessions, I have little to show for it. Although I do live in a nice house because my father left it to me when he died. I'm a tad regretful that I didn't live when I was young and had more energy. Many of my friends did, and still do, get into relationships and travel, have children, and live life to the fullest. I'm getting to the point where I don't have the will or wherewithal to try again. I'm just the opposite. I had a colorful life. I was a bike messenger in San Francisco of all places, and was in a semi-popular band back in the 80s. I don't regret a bit of my choices, except the 5-year M addiction. But I saved nothing at all until my 40s. I am now 60 and have a small nest egg, but nowhere near the $1 million I'm supposed to have for retirement. I will likely work for another 15 years. Again, no regrets. I have memories that few others have, but I am not ready to retire for a long while. Not to be negative Ned here, but I just want to point out that all the savers who died before being able to spend their nest egg won't be commenting for obvious reasons. Although I'm sure their next of kin were grateful. I have no next of kin. I will convert my nest egg to gold and bury it in a chest somewhere for someone to discover. It will make for a heck of a life-changing story for someone. I'm a 27-year-old that saves and invests more than 50% of my income, so I'll probably be the kind of person you are referring to around 50 or so. I think the relationship between living and spending need not be so highly correlated. I think many people have a consumerism addiction where they need to buy a product to get a dopamine hit, whether the product adds to their life in a meaningful way or not. I live a cheap apartment, drive a used car, eat food I make myself mostly, go on long hikes on trails where I'm not charged, train for and compete in marathons a couple of times a year, surf, never buy a new board. There's no reason why living needs to be so expensive that it results in no money being saved. The routine for many people seems to be work plus suffer, purchase product to feel relief, put product in garage amongst the thousands of other things you don't use, bank and investment account remains at $0. This is not a good cycle. So far I'm reading a lot of responses from people that either had 2 very good incomes that spent what they had and invested very well because they actually had cash to invest and cheap housing to buy, or they guy was poor with debt but now I'm not, and it's great responses, with no real explanation what they did to save with such crippling debt. So, a story that didn't quite work out like the others. Good friends of ours just retired at 48. She worked at a lower paying job. Think $2 or $3 over minimum wage, 8 hours a day, then another one for another 8. She got Saturdays off to take care of her 2 kids. He worked 14 hours a day managing a food court restaurant, taking off Sundays. Yes. Bought a cheap house. Yes. Saved every penny they had. Bought nothing. Went on no vacations other than a few days here and there to visit family. No expensive toys. Had a car they never drove because the bus was cheaper. Did not live in the US where goods, fuel, and food is cheap and taxes are lower. You guys honestly don't know how lucky you are. Sometimes. Last year they up and retire. Kids are grown and off to university. They've had enough. They feel old, look old, don't do much. They figure it's worth it. Yeah, they have another 30 years to live and they don't need to work any longer, as long as they're careful. Me? They gave up their youth and their energy and for what? A quiet life where they do little because they never learned how to have a hobby when younger nor get any interests? We don't see much of them anymore. No one really does. Moral? Yes. Invest? Yes. Save your cash while you can. But don't sacrifice too much time or interests. Have a hobby. Hit the countryside in a tent. Live life as well as work, so that when you do retire it's a change, not an ending. I am an aging Gen Xer and it was totally worth it. House is paid for so the mortgage money goes to investments, kids, and fun. My wife was able to quit her job and stay at home since one salary was enough now. She may go back to work just to keep busy and because she wants to. We almost never paid interest on anything, except the mortgage, when we had it. Credit cards paid in full each month. We saved to buy cars and never financed them. We also keep cars for 10-20 years to maximize their value. My wife is a fanatic couponer and saved 100s every month. She also just knows her prices and knows good deals, so when it's time to spend we spend wisely. I also insist on quality so we will spend more if something is worth it. Additionally, we paid off the house in 10 years rather than 30. Between the cars, house, and credit cards, we saved $100,000 on interest, which all went to investments. We max out our 401k contributions each year. IRA for wife now. I know things are harder now, and I feel for the millennials who want to do what I did but just can't. I work with many of them. I'm the old guy at work, and they are great people, all smart, aware, and hardworking. I don't see the entitled thing at all. Maybe I'll live in a bubble, but this generation is pretty cool. I am 45. I have throughout my life postponed risk-taking and pleasuring behavior and saved and invested everything I could. Put in the extra hours at work to get ahead. I wish I had not and just want my life back. My savings and investments evaporated due to a lawsuit and I do not even own a house now. Instead, I have endless stress, work and family trouble, and feel bitter for not having lived my life. I am all over this. My parents never believed in fads and fashion, and I've never smoked. I get everything I want. I just don't want the same things as other people. Don't let other people convince you that you want or need material things. Don't try to impress anyone but yourself. And don't buy things on credit unless you absolutely have to. I am mortgage free at 32, from a lower middle income job. My aim is to retire at 45. My time and freedom to see and do new things is far more important to me than having stuff. Learned from parents who grew up in depression. With 6 children, we were still able to live below our means and never felt like we were going without. If you use your imagination, there are plenty of things you can do for free and have fun. We made it a point to set aside part of my check first into a retirement account. My wife did not work but worked hard staying home with kids and housekeeping. Paid off house in 17 years instead of 30 and actually retired early. All our children are self-sufficient and we are worth well over 7 figures. The funny thing is, even with all this money we still don't splurge but have everything we need. I think the trick is to realize the difference between needs and wants. I have to thank my parents for this. We always asked ourselves, do we need this or want this? Also ask yourself if you can buy this used. We have always bought used cars with cash and kept them until the wheels fell off. We also gave generously to local charities as we felt so fortunate. You have been visited by the grandmother gymnast comment, my body is my temple, so you can do that when you're old. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video, or don't. Either way, have a great day you magnificent people.